Hey, what's up, everybody? What's going on? It is Wednesday, May 18th, 2022. And you know what that means? 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. Your friend Dean Kulaweera here. Thanks so much for tuning in. What I'm speaking about today is a very important topic: interview tips for introverts from an introvert. Yes, that's right. I do classify myself, at least earlier on in life, way more introverted than I am today. So I wanted to share some tips. I'm also going to be sharing a bit of my own story in terms of how I develop the muscle for social interaction and that kind of stuff, right? Because we all interact with people in different ways, and interviews, job interviews, it involves you having to interact with people. All right, so all you introverts out there, all of you who are shy, you're socially shy, you're experiencing some difficulties with your social interactions, I got your back today. Today's segment is especially for you because this is a request I get every now and then from those of you who message me with your feedback, and some of you tell me about topics you want me to cover, and I don't get a chance to respond to all of your messages, but I am listening, and this is why I wanted to do today's session. All right, so before I get into that, make sure you introduce yourself in the comments, and also shout out to everyone tuning in from LinkedIn, from YouTube, as well as on Twitter. Appreciate everyone tuning in and appreciate your support. By the way, if you want to follow me on any of my other social channels, all my social channels are listed on my Linktree page. So check out linktr.ee/DK Tech Recruiter, linktr.ee/DK Tech Recruiter. All my social links are there. So I'm also active on, aside from what I already mentioned, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, also active on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Where else? I post in multiple places, folks. Like, frankly, like sometimes I don't even remember where I post. Yeah, Anchor. So, that podcasting platform, Anchor. So I post a couple of podcast sessions every week. So if you're more of an audio person, you're sick and tired of seeing Dean, visually, you're sick and tired of this, you can always head over to this link right here. Check out the link for my Anchor podcast, right? Anchor, Spotify. I'm also on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and I think Break, a couple of those podcasting platforms. Anyway, just check that out. All right. So make sure you introduce yourself in the comments. Let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from, what city you're based out, and all that stuff. Love hearing from you folks. We got my friend Raphael in the house. Raphael says, Dean, I've been meaning to ask you about that funky music you come out to. Love it. Hey, I appreciate that, Raphael. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, so that music I put on is actually from, well, I first heard about like the music, the instrumental, from one of my favorite hip hop artists. I'm a Tupac fan. I grew up listening to Tupac. It's from a song of his called Late Night, but the original music was by some older artist, like some musician. I can't remember the name, but I think it was the original track is called Wind Parade. I can't remember the original artist who produced it and stuff, but I think the music I put in my intro, it's like a remix of kind of the two, putting the two together. So that's where the music is from. So I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you love it. It's like one of my favorite instrumentals. I just love it. So appreciate you having you here, Raphael, and always great to see you there in the comments. Anyone else, feel free to introduce yourself again in the comments. And also, just a quick heads up, if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter. Appreciate everyone that has subscribed already. And I post different topics. I release a new episode, a new edition of my newsletter every Monday during the afternoon. So make sure you subscribe so you get the notification when a new edition comes out. If you want to see what this week's edition was about, just go to my LinkedIn profile after the session. It should be in the featured section. There should be a link to my article from this week, so feel free to check that out. Today's session is sponsored by Tech Recruiters 360. So if you're an IT professional anywhere in Canada, you're an organization looking to hire talent anywhere in Canada, make sure you connect with me and reach out for more information on how I can assist you. And don't feel shy. Don't feel shy, folks. Feel free to send me a direct message or a LinkedIn email, or check out my Linktree page. It has a link to my email as well. If you don't have LinkedIn email credits or whatnot, or if you don't have the ability to reach out to me for whatever reason, just go to my Linktree page. Again, the link is right over here. That has multiple other ways where how you can connect with me and reach out to me. All right, so make sure you definitely feel free to do that. The session is also sponsored by DK Global Talent. My course, Applying to Jobs Online 101, it helps job seekers increase responses to their job applications through the use of direct messaging, right? A very proactive means of standing out there and separating yourself from all those hundreds of other applicants that are applying for the same role. So for more information about that, feel free to check out dkglobaltalent.com/get responses, dkglobaltalent.com/get responses. All right. So that being said, let's get into today's session. Let me see if there's any more comments here. Rishabh says not able to see anything. All right. I'm not sure. I don't see anyone else complaining about that, Rishabh. So I don't know if it's something at your end. But I don't think anyone. I think everyone else is able to see me, right? So just maybe someone else confirm as well if you're able to see me. We got Lakshmi in the house. Shout out to Lakshmi. Lakshmi says, "Hi Dean, I'm looking for technical recruiter openings. I live in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. I'm happy attending your live streams." Hey, I appreciate having you here, Lakshmi. So any organizations, any agencies looking for a technical recruiter, reach out to you here, Lakshmi. So that being said, let's get into today's session, folks. Today's session, what I'm going to be speaking about is, sorry, hold on. Let me just, I got some other, so I'm going to get into the other, the other comments there. But so what I'm going to be speaking about today is interview tips for introverts, right? Now, those of you tuning in, and this is from an intro, I would classify myself as someone, at least early on in my life, I was very shy. I was very like interacting with people was very, very difficult for me, right? And today's session is specifically for those of you who are experiencing that. Like, you've got these great talents. You got so much potential. You got so much ability. You got a lot of talent. You know that, hey, if I'm given this role, if I'm given this job, I know I can ace it, right? That, like, but the only crutch, the only real handicap you're facing is, Dean, like I'm not good at interacting with people. I don't know how to. I don't know. I find it very difficult to interact with people. I feel a little anxious. I feel a little nervous. I'm not good with meeting complete strangers. How can I deal with this situation? So coming from someone who has experienced this for the majority of the early part of my life, folks, like that's how. I mean, I was the exact same way, right? And if nothing else, the message I want to share with you folks today is that it does not have to be a crutch, right? If you classify yourself as someone leaning more towards the introverted side of things, or shy and someone who doesn't connect with strangers very easily and stuff like that. And I'm going to talk about this a little more later. You actually do have a lot of strengths that actually will make you a fantastic person for interviews, in the sense of someone who can do really well at interviews, right? So don't think just because you're experiencing some difficulties right now with interacting with people, meeting with strangers, obviously, because at most of your interviews, most of the time, whether it's on video, on the phone, in person, like it's going to be with people you've never met before, right? I mean, let's keep it real, right? I mean, these are complete strangers by all means, and it's not an easy thing for all of us to interact with strangers, right? I mean, you see a lot of these posts on LinkedIn and other places in social media where people are like, "Oh yeah, it's no big deal, just know your stuff, do your research, know your stuff, just shine at the interview." I mean, it's real easy to say that stuff, but when you have difficulties interacting with people, I mean, it doesn't even sound real, right? I mean, it's way easier said than done. We got my friend Pino in the house. Shout out to Pino. Good to see you here, Pino. Appreciate you tuning in. Long time no see. Hope you're doing great. We got Eddie in the house. Eddie says, "I can see you." All right, awesome. So there's no video issues in regards to this. And Pino says, "Can't wait to listen to this." So that being said, folks, look, early on, what I did realize, like as someone, I came to this realization that, look, yes, I am introverted. Yes, I'm a little shy when I'm around strangers. And by the way, shy to the point that I would actually avoid any interactions with people I didn't know. Like that's the way I used to be. Like I would avoid these interactions with people I didn't know. And or if I was ever thrown into, God forbid, if I was ever thrown into a situation where I was having to be forced to speak to people I didn't know, like I used to get, look, folks, I used to get so freaking like anxious and nervous around people I didn't know. My throat used to tighten up. Like I could literally not speak. Like my throat muscles would literally tighten up. And like my voice would, I like it would be like, one of those squeak. You know how when your throat sometimes tightens up and you kind of have a squeaky kind of a voice? Like that would sometimes happen to me. Like that's how intense this issue was for me. Right. So I wanted to share some tips with you. And these are based on my own learning. So look, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a certified therapist or a counselor or something like that. What I'm speaking about today is stuff that has worked for me that I wanted to share with all of you great folks out there. Right. Because I don't want you to think, hey, Dean, what do you know about this stuff? Oh, you're always, on video, on social media. You've got a whole bunch of followers on LinkedIn. And yeah, that is true. I have like tens of thousands of followers on LinkedIn. Since 2019, I've been either a keynote speaker or a panelist speaker at over 40 events, right? Mostly across the Greater Toronto area, a mix of video presentations as well as in-person events where I had to speak in front of crowds of like, yeah, as small as 5 or 10 people and the biggest one was this one Zoom presentation I did where there was like 180 people. Right. And it definitely doesn't come easy, folks. And the first piece of advice I want to share with you is you got to have realistic expectations. Like you're not going to be able to go from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds, right? Most of us we're not Lamborghinis. Okay. Like you're not going to go from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. You can't expect to be some master social butterfly within like 24 hours. Like this is a skill you have to master every single day. So that is takeaway number one. This is a skill, okay? Interacting with people, socializing with people, because maybe you're not looking at interviews as kind of a socializing experience. Because I mean, by all means, in most cases, it probably isn't, right? Like it's a professional interaction, right? But what's in common with our social interactions as well as our conversations at interviews, where it's more of a professional discussion, is you're interacting with human beings. Okay, you're interacting with human beings, and that is a muscle you have to exercise as much as possible every single day. And this became so true to me right now during COVID, because during COVID my interactions with people were in-person interactions with people was much less than what it was before COVID. Most of my interactions were limited to phone interviews as well as phone conversations as well as video conversations. And it's totally different when you're interacting with people in person, right? And what I found is as we started getting out into COVID and these in-person events started becoming a thing again, and I started attending these in-person events, like I started feeling that anxiety, that nervousness coming back, and that made me realize that hey, this is for sure something that we got to exercise every single day, right? So the first thing is, my question for you folks is, are you exercising your social skills every single day? Don't even think about interviews right now. All I'm asking you is, are you exercising your social skills every single day? Like you gotta be treating this like a muscle, folks. Now, around 2 years ago, I'll give you a quick kind of analogy to this. Okay. Like 2 years ago, I had this shoulder injury, right? I had this injury in my shoulder, my right shoulder over here. And I couldn't do weights, right? I used to lift weights before that. So for the past 2 years, so I've been going to physiotherapy and fixing this and stuff. And what I did before going to the physiotherapy is I completely stopped doing weights and stuff. And what does that do to my muscle, my biceps, my shoulder muscle? What does it do? It weakens it. It weakens it, folks. Like I cannot, like right now, as it is right now, I cannot lift the same amount of weights as I used to, like from 2 years ago, prior to this shoulder injury that I got. It's a muscle. If you're not exercising the muscle, you're not, again, just like I said, you can't go from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds. You can't suddenly start lifting 500, 100 pounds or 200 pounds when you haven't been exercising the muscle for a while. So you got to start looking at this as a social exercise that you got to do. You got to start interacting with people as much as possible every single day. Now, don't just stick to people you already know in terms of your immediate surroundings, right? Because most of you might be like, well, Dean, I interact with my husband every day, my wife every day, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my significant other, or whatever it is. But one of the best things you can do, and this is something I started doing when I decided that, hey, I gotta get good at improving my ability to interact with people. One of the first things I did is I just simply had to get used to being around people because, especially when I was a teenager, I was, like I said, it was extreme anxiety when it came to interacting with people I didn't know. So one of the first things I did is, and this might be helpful for some of you out there, is simply be around people. Don't even worry about interact. Don't even interact with people. No pressure about talking to people, starting conversations. Nothing. Something I used to do is, and this was again way back when I was a teenager, when I was really starting this journey on how I can get better with interacting with people, is I used to just go to the mall, right? Just go to the mall, sit at the food court, and I just be there. Like I wouldn't even try talking to people because I was just too freaked out to do that anyway. But I just sit there in the food court and I just feel comfortable being around people, right? So if you have an extreme level of anxiety interacting with people and the thought of talking to strangers just, freaks you out, one of the first things I suggest, and this is something I did, is simply get comfortable being around people, right? Talking to people is going to be something so beyond your, I mean, talking to complete strangers is going to be something so beyond your, your thoughts of possibilities right now. It's not even going to be real to you. So I'm not even going to advise those of you who are experiencing extreme anxiety to start talking to complete strangers. I'm not going to advise you to do that. What I would advise you to do is, and it's real simple, go to a, okay, this is homework, by the way. Okay. So if you're wherever your location is, if things have open, if malls are open and stuff like that, wear your mask. If you want to go out with your mask on, that's fine. Simply go to a mall, sit at the food court, and just be there, folks. Just be there. Start feeling comfortable being around people, and try to do that multiple times every week, because this is not something that you can just do on a Monday and then you're like, okay, I'm good. I'm good with being around people now. I can move on to the next thing. No, consistency, folks. You got to do it consistently. It is a consistent muscle that you got to exercise, and that's something I try to do as multiple times during the week when I was, way back when I was like extremely shy, extremely socially, so extreme social anxiety when I had to interact with people. I'd simply be around people. And what you start discovering is that people, I mean, people have their own thing. Like they have their own things going on. They have their own problems. They're in their own world. Like most of the people out there are in their own worlds. They got their own things going on. And you start to see that, hey, I mean, these people are no different than me. I mean, there's no real, I mean, different races, different religions, different genders, different this, different that. But where you start to see that we're all pretty much the same, right? So simply get used to being around people. That is the first step. And this is mainly advice for those of you out there who are just freaked out by the idea of speaking out to strangers, right? Extreme, you have more of an extreme kind of anxiety, kind of like how I did back when I was a teenager. So that is one exercise you can do. Now, the second exercise I want you to do is start with the people you already know, right? Again, this all comes down to how comfortable you are simply with interacting with people. Okay, so those of you who need to just be comfortable being around people, you do that exercise. Okay, go out to a coffee shop, go out to a mall. You don't have to speak to anyone. Just sit there, be there. Just start feeling comfortable simply being around people. Okay, and by the way, no playing on your phone. Okay, do not start taking this device out and start playing around with it, because you're not going to be completely present. Okay, so set a timer, maybe whatever is reasonable for you. Okay, 1 minute, no phone. Just sit there, just be around, observe people around you, people watch, just be around people. That's it. Now, the second tip is, when you're ready to take it to the next level, is what you want to do is you want to start interacting with the people you already know. Okay, friends, family, relatives. These are going to be the easiest social interactions for you to kind of initiate. Okay, you got to, again, I know some of you listening to this might be like, well, Dean, I thought you said you're going to share interview tips with us that's going to help us, for introverted. Well, this is very much related to this whole ability, this skill, this muscle you have to develop, and feeling comfortable interacting with people. And a lot of you, what you're doing is you got an interview scheduled for like Friday, like Friday next week. And from now until Friday next week, you're not interacting with anyone. And then you're expecting to go into this interview next week, Friday, like you think you're going to be like all, gung-ho and confident, and oh yeah, I'm meeting with strangers. Yeah, it's not going to work like that, folks. All right, for those of us who are a little shy, a little antsy about interacting with strangers, like you got to exercise the muscle beforehand. So the homework, the second homework is, for those of you who are able to do this, is you want to start reaching out to people you already know. You want to start exercising that social muscle ASAP. Okay, so call up your buddies, call up your friends, just catch up with them. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Okay, it could be over the phone. Maybe it's over video. If you're comfortable with it, hey, go meet out somewhere. Just go meet up at a park or something, or I don't know. Go to a restaurant, go to a bar, just meet up, catch up, start exercising that muscle. Now, I'm not saying do this every day, and because it might be those of you who don't want to spend money going out every single day, meeting friends and stuff like that, which is fine, but mix it up, right? Maybe you meet in person with your friends today, then you meet another friend, you call another friend tomorrow. Day after, you set up a video call with one of your past coworker buddies, your bestie, your former bestie at work. You have a conversation with them. Like, make it an everyday thing, folks, right? And that's how you start developing that level of comfort with interacting with another human being. Because, I mean, frankly, that is the main issue when you're feeling a little nervous about these interviews. And especially if you're again, if you classify yourself as more introverted, you're not like exactly a social butterfly. And these are some of the things I used to do to start improving my ability to interact with people and not feel as anxious and as nervous. Now, this took me personally, like, many years figuring this out on my own. But look, if you guys start doing this, by the way, with a lot of trial and error, by the way, and if you guys start doing this, I mean, you're gonna feel much more comfortable eventually starting to speak with strangers and people that you don't know, right? Because it's extremely important. So we got some great comments here. So we got Raphael says, a tip that I use is that I pretend that the person is someone that I already know and I know something intimate about them. So it's like we're friends already. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice, Raphael, right? So look, if you can take Raphael's advice, that's a great way to look at it as well, right? Like, just start treating the person you're talking to as if they're already a friend. Like, you've already known them for years and years. And if you're able to do that, that's going to totally change the interaction, right? And it's going to be much more natural conversation. It's like you're kind of speaking to someone you've already known for a while, right? So great advice there, Raphael. Thanks for doing that. Like, we're already, yeah, exactly. Like, we're already friends. Pino says, here's an idea: get involved with sports. Pino, love that. Excellent idea. That's an extremely great idea. And Pino also says, join clubs and gym. It's a great way to meet and engage with people. Yeah, also great advice. I totally agree with that. Common interest, like, connecting with others based on common interest is another great way to kind of build things with a complete stranger, right? Because you probably feel more comfortable interacting with someone you have some common interest with. So try looking into, just like how Pino said, which is great advice. I love that advice. Look for common interest groups, right? Check out meetup.com, meetup.com. I believe meetup.com I think they have like groups all over the world, and it's usually based on common interests, right? It's a great website. And you can literally look, I mean, it could be interest related to like sports and hobbies and I don't know, a whole bunch of, personal related hobbies and interests, and it's also groups related to professional interests as well. So for example, if you're a business analyst, you're a Java developer, you're a software developer, you work in the construction industry, like there's probably a group for you out there somewhere, folks, whether it's related to a personal interest or something that's related to your work or your profession or your field. So these are great ways of, again, getting comfortable meeting with strangers, people you just met, people you haven't yet gotten a chance to know, and connecting with them based on something you have in common, which is a common interest, field, profession, whatever it is. So great advice there, Pino, and I think that's fantastic advice for those of you, for my friends out there who are wanting to get more comfortable interacting with people they just met. So that is just some general advice I wanted to share in terms of, first and foremost, getting comfortable simply interacting with people. And so the key takeaway so far, folks, is, look, it's a muscle. You got social interactions, whether we're talking, literally with your friends, your family, people you already know, or whether we're talking about interviews with complete strangers you just met. It is a muscle. Social interactions, all these different types of social interactions, it's a muscle you have to exercise, and you got to exercise it as much as possible throughout the week, right? So you got to take steps to get there. Now, the other tip I have is, let me see. I wrote down a whole bunch of notes here. Yeah. So the other thing is, look, if you're someone who's again more so on the introverted side of the scale, right? If you're someone more so on that side, what I want you to think about is, don't think that, oh, well, I'm an introvert, I'm at a big disadvantage at interviews and blah, blah, blah. No, folks, if you start thinking like that, like, it's going to reflect in your attitude, the way you communicate, and the way it's not going to do you any good going in with that attitude at your interviews. So what I want you to do is, you got to leverage your strengths. Okay. All my introvert friends out there. Okay. And I'm kind of generalizing here, but you have a few clear strengths that give you an advantage over people that might be more so on the extroverted side. And I wanted to share with you some of those strengths that I have noticed, not only in myself, but also in others who classify themselves as introverts, right? Because I have friends that are introverts. I know people I've worked with who are also introverts, and of course myself as someone in the past, like I mentioned, being way more on the introverted side of things. That self-awareness, like I know these are some things that I have that are strengths over someone that might be more naturally inclined to be more extroverted and interact with people on a social level. Now the first thing you got to understand about interviews is, remember, job interviews are not it's not just about you being a good talker. Okay, like it's not about you being a talker. And I'm sure Pino works in recruitment. You'll agree with me on this as well. It's not about just being a good talker. That's just part of it. Like the communication aspect, of course, you got to be good, be very good at communicating, articulating your value and all that stuff. Of course, that's important. But it's not just about being a good talker. Like I remember one time, I presented this candidate who was if introvert extrovert was a scale, like they would be 100% on the extrovert side, right? Very talkative, very extroverted, that kind of a person, right? And I remember I submitted them for a role with a client of mine, and after the interview was over, of course I called up the client and I was like, hey, so what's your feedback on this candidate? What do you think about them? Do you want to move ahead with them? Would you want to move on to the next interview with them? And my client told me, Dean, absolutely not. This candidate would not stop talking. Like they just went on and on and on and on and on and talking about, like we'd ask them a question and they just go, I mean, they talk about their entire, like every the response to every question was almost like a philosophical, like they were just I mean, they were 20-minute answers for like every question, pretty much. I could be exaggerating there, but this is the reaction from my client, right? They're like, my God, like they would interrupt, they just keep talking, they were just terrible. And they were like, we do not want to move ahead with this person, just we want to pass with them, pass on them, we do not want to move ahead with this person. Now this individual, this candidate, was, by the way, highly accomplished candidate. Like this, and by the way, this was a role at the I think it was at like the director level or something like that. So this is a very experienced candidate, like someone who has done some amazing stuff in the past, right? So this is not like some random, terrible person that I presented. Like I'm talking like this is a highly accomplished person, and yet they flunked the interview. They failed the interview simply because they were too much on the talkative side. They were only talking. They were only communicating. So one of your greatest strengths, one of our greatest strengths as introverts, is our ability to listen and understand. That is a natural talent that we have. We're way better at listening, understanding, asking questions. And these are like, if it was 50-50, I mean, this if 50% of the importance of the interview was you communicating your value, then the other 50% would be your ability to listen, ask questions, probe, investigate, understand the motivations of the hiring team, right? And this is one of the greatest advantages that you have as an introvert, is you probably have a great ability, a genuine you probably have a genuine ability to want to understand other people, right? Let me know if I'm wrong. If any of my introvert friends out there, you're watching this, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong about this. I'm definitely stereotyping here. I'm definitely kind of generalizing here, but I would say for the most part, that is one of our greatest strengths as introverts, is we have a genuine ability, or we have a genuine need to want to understand other people, like the person that we're talking to and interacting with. We're capable of holding more deeper conversations, right? Some would say. So this is a strength you got to leverage at your interviews, because this is something you can probably do naturally better than any, hands down, probably any extrovert out there. Extrovert, I mean, there are definitely extroverts out there that do this, that they ask questions and they do. But a lot of people, a lot of these extreme types, like they had to take a lot of efforts to remind themselves to do this. But for us, it comes naturally, right? We're naturally curious about the other person in front of us. Because we're not much talkers ourselves, right? So what do you do when you're not much of a talker? You ask about the other person. You ask them, so tell me more about this project. So what are the biggest problems and challenges you're facing? Oh, why is that a challenge? What's that resulting in? How are the other members of the team handling this? Like we have this genuine ability to ask those questions so we can understand the other person, the other party. And this is a strength, folks. For those of you who are more inclined on the introvert side of things, you got to leverage this at your interviews, because it's so important. This is it's such a great natural strength and talent that we have. And it's benefited me so much as a recruiter. Okay. And I'm not just saying this. If you don't believe me, what I want you to do after this, after the end of this session, go to my LinkedIn profile, scroll down to the recommendations section of my profile. You'll see recommendations from some of the candidates in the past that I have placed. And you'll see something in common. Most of the candidates that wrote me a recommendation said was, something along the lines of, hey, Dean, he took a lot of effort in understanding my needs. Dean took a lot of efforts in understanding the role, the requirement. Dean took a lot of efforts in knowing what I bring to the table and my knowledge and blah blah blah. You'll notice that, and I feel that is a pattern that most of us introverts have, is that we take that step in really understanding the person that we're speaking to, the other party. So you got to be doing this, folks, okay, at your interviews. Like, you got to, this is why I always speak about this. Like, you got to prepare your own questions and show a genuine need in understanding what the hiring team is looking to accomplish by hiring you for the role, and you taking those steps to understand the project, understand the problem, understand the hiring need, understand the hiring motivation. Like, you can do this much more naturally than the more talkative types out there. So keep this in mind. This is an extremely important part of the equation, is asking questions, showing genuine interest in understanding the hiring motivation and the interviewers and all that stuff, right? So that is one strength you gotta leverage. Is you're probably an excellent listener. You're probably a great listener, and you're probably a natural listener. So you gotta leverage that. Let's leverage our strengths, folks, right? Let's leverage our strengths and use that at our interviews. Now, the next tip is, you got to, based on your understanding of asking these questions, understanding the hiring motivation, understanding the hiring need. What this allows you to do is, now is when you can kind of determine, okay, how am I going to communicate my value? Because now that you have an understanding of what the other party's needs are, now you're in a better position to effectively communicate and articulate what you bring to the table that will help the other party, the other individual. Now, this is, of course, the part where it might be a little challenging for those of us who are more introverted. Is, hey, how do I communicate this? How do I articulate this? And the best way to get used to doing this, folks, is simply through repetition and just doing this over and over again. But what you have done is, you have taken those steps in understanding the hiring need, and that's going to provide you with a lot of intel, a lot of data that's going to allow you to figure out, okay, what should I be speaking about? What should I be highlighting about my background? What should I be highlighting about the projects I did at XYZ company? And you're going to know exactly what you need to be focusing on, so you can communicate that to the interviewer. Okay, so all those, all that effort you put into listening and asking questions and understanding and probing and investigating, like, all of that is not just you just randomly asking a whole bunch of stuff. It's so that you can leverage that stuff and deliver your responses to speak to those areas, those problems, those issues that the hiring team was talking about. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, you probably have great researching abilities, right? And research is such an important aspect of doing well at interviews, because it's very important to show that you've done your research, right? Not just in regards to the company, the role, the job description, all that stuff, but also in relation to your salary stuff, right? Salary rates and all that stuff. Like this is all stuff that you can leverage, right? Now, obviously, we're speaking about interviews here, but from a research standpoint, like, you probably have a natural inclination towards being a great researcher as well. And that's another thing you want to leverage as for your interviews as well, is simply taking the time to conduct the research, researching the organization, researching the interviewers, the people who are going to be present at the interview, researching their backgrounds, researching the company, researching the department, researching the key products and achievements and milestones the company has reached. Like, these are all things, again, that you can leverage at your interviews, right? If you're taking these steps. So that's what I wanted to share with you. Look, you got to leverage your strengths if you want to really succeed in at your interviews. So basically, today's session was kind of divided into two parts, folks. So just to summarize, the first part was you simply got to get, interviews are social interactions. Okay, like, you're interacting with people you might have just met. Maybe you know them, but in most cases you don't know these people. So you got to exercise that social interaction muscle, right? So you got to do this as much as possible, multiple times a week. You got to get used to interacting with people and exercising that social muscle. The second part of the today's session, what I spoke about was, leveraging your strengths in order to do better at your interviews. So what are some of your natural strengths as an introvert? You're probably an excellent listener. You have that genuine need to want to understand the other party, and in this case at the interview, the interviewers, the hiring manager, the recruiter, whoever it is. So that is a huge advantage for you, because the biggest mistake so many people make at their interviews is they're just talking, right? I can do this, I did this project, I did that project, I did this. And a lot of people don't take the time to truly understand the hiring motivation. And if you're missing that component, Sure, you can get lucky sometimes, and actually you land yourself the next step in the process, or even land yourself the job. But if you can actually take that time and effort, leveraging your strength as an introvert to ask questions, to want to genuinely understand the other person, the other party, if you can leverage that, I mean, you'll just be a stone cold killer, right? And if you can couple that with improving your communication ability through, again, exercising that social muscle, I mean, you're going to be pretty much on a force to be reckoned with at your interviews, right? So leverage your strengths as an introvert. So asking questions and all that. And the other thing was that I spoke about was research. Research is another thing that you can leverage, which you can probably do really, really well naturally, is researching, right? Always research the interviewer, always research the recruiter, always research the company, research the department, research the key products and solutions and services the company offers. Like, this is all stuff that you can really leverage, that allows you to gather intel that you can now leverage at your interviews, and you know exactly what to focus on, what you want to speak about, what questions you can formulate around that research, and all that stuff. That again goes to show the hiring team that, hey, this person has done their stuff, they've done their research, they're asking great questions, and they're showing a genuine need to want to understand this project. And that's going to allow you to be in a better position to, again, communicate your value and focus on the stuff that's going to be most relevant to the hiring team, folks. All right, so look, I hope today's session helped. Make sure you hit me up with a like and share if you found today's session helpful. And if you have any questions, now will be the time to put them in the comments. I'll get to any questions shortly. Let's see here. So Pino says it's about feeling comfortable and building confidence. It takes time, baby steps. 100% true, right? I mean, this is so key, folks, right? If you're not confident at your interviews right now, don't feel bad about yourself. Like, this can take time, right? But what's going to help speed things up is the more you exercise this social interaction muscle. Like, it's a muscle you have to exercise. And like I said, again, despite being a recruiter myself, I mean, no other time in my life did this become more apparent than during COVID. Because during COVID, when we were at that point where there were no more like in-person events, and then suddenly recently I started going to in-person events, like, my social skills were really, really, I mean, really rusty, because in-person interactions are way different than those video conversations or even phone calls and stuff like that. Like, in-person interactions is like totally different, right? But even if not, then, like, you got to get good at talking to people over the phone, talking to people on video. So before you get good at doing that at interviews, make sure you're practicing this at least multiple times a week with people that you already know, at least, right? At least you're getting used to, and you're getting into that routine of talking to people, communicating with people, and exercising that social interaction skill set and muscle that you have. So with that being said, looks like there's no other questions. So I don't. It doesn't look like there's any other questions. So hey, appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure you mark your calendars every week on Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. I'm right here to help you folks out with job search tips, advice, and strategies. Make sure you hit like. Make sure you comment and share your feedback from the session. Let me know if there's any other topics you want me to cover in future sessions. And remember, folks, leverage your strengths, right? Leverage your strengths. Most of us are not born, fantastic interviewers or whatnot. Like, it's a skill you have to develop over time, right? And if you're still not at a point where you feel like really comfortable and confident in interviews, don't feel down on yourself. Like, everyone experiences that, and this is coming from myself. Look, I'm a guy who, like, I remember, I used to like freak out having to speak to people, right? Now it's like, many years later, I'm like totally different. Like, I'm a different person. I probably wouldn't even recognize who I was way before, right? So it's a muscle. It's a skill you got to develop over time, and you got to develop it continuously. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the effort. It will involve getting a little bit out of your comfort zone. But you know what they say, right? I mean, the great stuff, the great things, the great stuff, it usually lies beyond our comfort zones. So don't give up. Keep pushing through, keep taking action. You got talent, you got ability, you got gifts, you got potential, and it's up to you to communicate that, articulate that out there into the universe, and out there to an organization out there that might be looking for someone very much like you. All right, so stay positive, keep pushing through, don't give up, and I'll see you next week, Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. Everyone have a fantastic week, and I'll see you around. I'll see you around then.